Imagine a child, barely 6 years old, reliving unspeakable trauma, forced to confront their alleged abuser in a cold, intimidating courtroom. This agonizing scenario lay at the heart of a landmark Supreme Court case that forever reshaped how justice is delivered for our most vulnerable. In October 1986, a Howard County grand jury in Maryland handed down a shocking indictment against Sandra and Craig, the owner and operator of a local kindergarten and preschool facility. She faced multiple severe charges, including child abuse, first- and second-degree sexual offenses, perverted sexual practice, assault, and battery. The named victim was a tender 6-year-old child, Brooke Etsy, who had attended Craig's Center from August 1984 to June 1986. The allegations against Craig were horrifying, but the process of bringing justice presented a profound challenge. How could children, traumatized by abuse, testify effectively without suffering further severe emotional distress? Before the trial commenced in March 1987, the state of Maryland sought to invoke a specific state law, Maryland Courts and Judicial Proceedings Code annotated Section 9102. This statute allowed for child abuse victims to deliver their testimony via one-way closed-circuit television, a measure designed to shield them from the defendant's direct presence. This innovative approach aimed to balance the defendant's constitutional rights with the compelling need to protect child witnesses. The trial court, recognizing the gravity of the situation, conducted a crucial pretrial hearing. Its purpose was to determine whether Brooke Etsy, the 6-year-old victim, and 3 other child witnesses would indeed suffer serious emotional distress if compelled to testify face-to-face with Sandra and Craig in the courtroom. Expert testimony was presented, painting a clear picture of the potential psychological harm. Based on this evidence, the court concluded that requiring these young children to testify in Craig's presence would prevent them from communicating reasonably. Despite Craig's objections regarding her Sixth Amendment rights, the court allowed the special procedure, believing it retained the essence of the right of confrontation. With the special procedure in place, the child witnesses testified via closed-circuit television. Sandra and Craig was subsequently convicted on all counts by the jury. Her legal team swiftly appealed. In 1988, the Maryland Court of Special Appeals affirmed these convictions, upholding the trial court's decision. However, the case took a significant turn in 1989 when the Maryland Court of Appeals reversed the convictions. This higher state court ruled that the trial court's showing of necessity was insufficient under the precedent set by Coy v. Iowa from 1988, arguing that the serious emotional distress must primarily stem from the face-to-face confrontation with the defendant herself. This set the stage for a dramatic showdown at the nation's highest court. The Maryland Court of Appeals decision created a direct conflict with the state of Maryland's interest in protecting child victims. Undeterred, the state of Maryland sought certiorari from the U.S. Supreme Court, which granted the petition, agreeing to hear the contentious case. The central legal question for the Supreme Court was whether the use of one-way closed-circuit television for child witness testimony, as permitted by the Maryland statute, violated a defendant's Sixth Amendment right to confront the witnesses against them. This was not merely a procedural technicality, it struck at the core of a fundamental constitutional protection, forcing the justices to weigh a defendant's rights against the profound vulnerability of child abuse victims. Oral arguments for Maryland v. Craig were heard on April 18, 1990, before the 9 justices of the Supreme Court. The state of Maryland argued that its statute was a necessary measure, vital for protecting child abuse victims and enabling them to testify, contending that the procedure preserved the essence of confrontation. Conversely, Sandra and Craig's defense maintained that her Sixth Amendment right to face-to-face confrontation was absolute and had been violated. A significant voice in the debate was the American Psychological Association, which filed an amicus curiae brief. They asserted that sexually abused children frequently suffer severe emotional trauma, making them highly susceptible to further distress from testifying in the defendant's physical presence, potentially compromising their testimony's reliability. On June 27, 1990, the Supreme Court delivered its 5-4 decision, reversing the Maryland Court of Appeals and reinstating Sandra and Craig's conviction. Justice Sandra Day O'Connor authored the majority opinion, joined by Chief Justice William Rehnquist and Justices Byron White, Harry Blackmun, and Anthony Kennedy. The majority held that the Sixth Amendment's Confrontation Clause does not guarantee an absolute right to face-to-face confrontation in criminal trials. Instead, they characterized it as a preference that could be overcome when necessary to further an important public policy, provided the testimony's reliability was otherwise assured. They emphasized that the Maryland procedure preserved other critical elements of confrontation, like testifying under oath and cross-examination. The majority's interpretation, however, was met with a scathing dissent penned by Justice Antonin Scalia, joined by Justices William J. O'Brien Jr., Thurgood Marshall, and John P. Stevens. Justice Scalia vehemently argued that the Sixth Amendment's text is unambiguous and explicitly guarantees face-to-face confrontation. He contended that the Constitution should protect against, rather than bend to, popular public policy considerations, no matter how emotionally compelling. For Scalia, the majority's decision represented a dangerous retreat from the literal meaning of the Confrontation Clause, undermining a bedrock principle of American criminal justice. He believed that the right of confrontation was too fundamental to be sacrificed for what he saw as mere convenience. The Maryland v. Craig decision established a critical legal precedent. The use of one-way closed-circuit television for child witness testimony is constitutional, but only under specific, stringent conditions. A trial court must make an individualized finding that the particular child witness would suffer serious emotional distress from testifying in the defendant's direct presence, to such a degree that it would prevent them from communicating reasonably. This was a crucial distinction from Coy v. Iowa, where no such individualized finding was required. The court underscored that this protective measure must be truly necessary, not merely convenient, to uphold the defendant's rights while safeguarding vulnerable children. This standard has since guided countless courtrooms across the nation. The impact of Maryland v. Craig on American jurisprudence and child protection cannot be overstated. It affirmed the constitutionality of specific protective measures for child witnesses, significantly influencing the development of laws like the Child Victims and Child Witnesses' Rights Act, which outlines procedures for child testimony. While the decision balanced constitutional rights with public policy, it also sparked ongoing debate about the literal interpretation of the Sixth Amendment. The necessity standard it established continues to be a cornerstone for courts navigating similar challenges, ensuring that the emotional well-being of child victims is considered without entirely eroding a defendant's right to a fair trial. Even decades later, the principles laid out in Maryland v. Craig remain profoundly relevant. Its validity was questioned after the Supreme Court's 2004 decision in Crawford v. Washington, which altered the landscape of Confrontation Clause jurisprudence. However, Craig has largely endured, remaining good law and influencing federal courts. Remarkably, during the unprecedented challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Craig precedent found new application. Courts relied on its reasoning to permit remote witness testimony via video conferencing, extending its reach beyond child abuse cases to other contexts where physical confrontation posed a significant, unforeseen barrier to justice. This adaptability underscores its enduring importance in American legal history.